I guess I'm starting this.
Let's start it, Moose. Yeah, you start it.
Let's
Let's do
start
it.
it. Let's start it. Oh man, here we are. I didn't expect I'd be on this Twitch stream, but here we are. For those watching on YouTube, always thank you for that. Those that are in here in the chat room, always love it. We got a very special edition of the Twitch stream tonight. A lot different of what we normally do here, but it's something we're going to be doing every week. Not sure if I'll be on it, but I definitely know Brian, the madman's going to be on it. So Brian is at the right. I'm Moose. Brian, why don't you tell us what we're doing tonight, man?
Sure. What's up, Moose? So, every Tuesday for the NFL regular season, maybe the playoffs too, we'll see. But every Tuesday night, I'm going to review my previous week's 150 lineups on DraftKings. Sometimes I'll do FanDuel. We'll see how it goes. But this is my quote unquote $1 million mission. Obviously won the $1 million top prize back in February. I'm on the quest to do it again.
That's pretty ambitious, man.
And it is ambitious, but this will be an educational series for everyone. It'll be exciting for everyone to follow along. And basically, what I'm going to be doing is max entering the Millionaire Maker every week on DraftKings and FanDuel. Use the Occupy model exclusively, as well as the DFS Magic lineup builder to make these lineups. And then we're going to talk about them each week, talk about why I chose the players I chose, the number of players I chose, and other 150 max entry strategies that I think a lot of people, especially our members who are new to the idea and new to using DFS Magic, can benefit from.
Absolutely, man. I totally agree with you on that. And I really think MME Moss Matty entry has definitely been a game changer for a lot of people. FanDuel now is doing the 150 max for 5 cents. I'm actually going to be trying that this Sunday with DFS Magic. So I might actually be on here back again next week talking about how that worked. Not the $1 million quest, but the $500 quest. We'll figure it out. But yeah, it was very interesting. I know you talked to me, Brian, when we said you want to do this. You sent me over your lineups and stuff. I did some analysis. It's crazy. I know you talk about it a lot. How much game theory, strategy goes in. That's out. All the stuff that goes in outside of the actual projections of the players that we have in the Occupy model.
Yeah, it's a lot. Ownership projections, optimal lineup construction, thinking about what the field is going to do,
Mm-hmm.
all kinds of things that go into it. Player selection is honestly one of the lowest factors when it comes to success. Obviously, you got to pick the right players. If you didn't pick Sammy Watkins, you probably weren't going to win the $1 million this week.
No.
But aside from that, we can gain big edges, and we can't just look at one week sample sizes, right, Moose?
Correct.
So we can't just say, oh, you didn't pick Sammy Watkins this week, you suck. I mean, maybe I did, but the goal here is to think about long-term strategy because, as if you've said, I've said many times before, when you play high-risk contests like this, there's going to be a lot of peaks and valleys, tons of valleys. And it's about having that long-term view and not getting caught up in all the losses.
Yeah, definitely. And what you see at the top of the screen as it starts to scroll now, you'll see Brian's week 1 top leverage plays. So it's the top 10. Basically, it's what his ownership was across his 150 lineups minus what the actual ownership was. So you'll see here Mike Evans was his biggest leverage play at plus
Cool.
33%. Yeah, that's a fun way to start off the stream.
Yeah, Christian McCaffrey wasn't bad. Plus 25. So basically, Moose. So plus 25% means McCaffrey was 20% owned. I had him in 45% of my lineups. It means I had a 25% edge on the field,
Correct.
depending on what McCaffrey did. So,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah. So we have. You can always see that at the top of the screen. We'll have a little section here over the next hour where I talk about specifically why I had these guys in as many lineups as I did. But then we'll also talk about just all my lineups in general, the strategies, and we'll take a look at some other pro DFS players' lineups to see if we can glean any information from how they approach the slate.
Yep, I'm totally down with that. So, I know what you sent me over here was your entry fees and stuff like that. Can we show them that picture?
Yeah, let's bring it up. So, like I said, this is going to be transparent. So go ahead and bring it up. I can't just only show you the weeks that I win. We're going to show the weeks that I lose too, because that's an important part. So, Moose, you want to talk through this real quick?
Yeah, and the big thing that I want to focus on, yes, everyone's going to say, "Oh, you suck. You had negative 62% ROI." Fair point. Look at that number at the bottom. You had 28 satellite tickets, so I'm assuming you spent less on these entry fees than it shows here the entry fees. Did less. So even if you did win something, you broke even a little bit about that. You're setting yourself up for these life-changing paydays for way less money than it should be. So so hats off to you on that, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, thanks. So the max is 150, $20 per entry. So if you had 0 satellite tickets, it would cost you $3,000 to enter this tournament. If you entered 150 lineups. I had 28 satellite tickets, so fortunately it only cost me $2,440. I returned $940 for a sweet little net of negative $1,500, minus 62% ROI. But I'm cool with that. I'm not cool with it, but like that's gonna happen. Like when you have a high risk approach, when you focus your lineups on 3 different games, you know, you're gonna have very wide ranges of outcomes. So negative 60% ROI. Expect it. Gonna have some weeks like that. So not worried at all about it, but a lot of things we can still learn from week 1.
Absolutely, I totally agree with you on that. Yeah, so you just want to dive right into it? Let me know how you want to go about this.
Yeah, I think let's start. There was a Twitter thread, I think it was yesterday or the day before. Twitter handle Giant Ball of Oil.
Great name.
Yeah, I've seen his name around a little bit, but he usually posts some Millionaire Maker, some GPP, DraftKings statistics. I think if we pull up that thread, it has some interesting information. If you want to just start from the top, Moose.
Okay, yeah. So let's just go here. So I got the Twitter thread up. Let's see. Should we discuss the FF Millie? Let's. It filled 294,000 entries entered by 120,000 unique users. Let's go over users first, then players.
Let's maximize this image because I think this shows a lot. If you look at Moose, how many let me see. Only a handful of these groupings profited, right?
Yeah, so if you look at the 150 entries, 150 block, their total win $711,300. Their total buy-in $654,000. Let's see if there's some other groups here that did some money. Obviously, the guy that won the million did.
Nice little ROI for him.
Yeah, so at 31 to 40, the 41 to 50 range, and then that looks like it's about it. Yeah.
So unsurprisingly, as we've said on pretty much every daily plug that's ever been written, as we say in the Ultimate Guide, your best chance of profiting in these tournaments is entering the 150 max, unless you somehow take it down. So if you look, I imagine that 150 max crew is going to be the most profitable group, Moose, I would imagine, over the course of these 17 weeks.
That's what I assume. And what I'm doing on my own thing is I'm keeping track of all the millionaire tournaments that have been done and all the users that have entered it. I want to see after 17 weeks what the ROI, entry fees, all that stuff like that across all the users. I'm sure it's going to be hundreds of thousands of different users. I'm curious, very, very curious to see how that's going to turn out.
Yeah, definitely. And before we go further, Moose, Connie Cat 99, what's up? Says, Brian, do you play 50-50s, double ups, head-to-heads, and what overall percentage of your overall expenditure? How did you fare in those cash non-GPP entries? Great question. Welcome. So if you're listening to this live and you have questions, definitely hop in the chat here and ask them. We'll answer them here over the next hour. On DraftKings and FanDuel, this will sound surprising. I played 0 cash contests. I have the highest risk mentality. I have very high risk tolerance. I understand that I'm opening myself to a lot of risk and some high variance by not playing any cash contests. Yeah. But Moose, I know I'm not that great at cash contests personally. Just the way my brain thinks, I'm way better at GPPs, high risk contests. There are some of these other smaller sites, as we talk about most in the Ultimate Guide, that have more casual competition. I do play some cash contests over there to kind of supplement my my winnings. But FanDuel and DraftKings, this $1 million mission, Moose, it's straight high risk for me.
Absolutely, yeah, I totally agree with that. I know sometimes you do talk about playing cash, whether it's in like showdown slates and stuff like that. Yeah, I don't really see you play cash too much.
No, it's I told you at the beginning of the year it's 150 max. You're the 150 max for me, and I'm going to continue to it. Like I said, luckily I hit the million early for tax purposes. You know, I have more incentive to play more aggressively here late in the year, before the end of the tax year. So
Yeah,
that's another reason for this.
definitely. It looks like we got some people in the chat, so I definitely appreciate that for joining and communicating. We got BKSA, who's a subscriber. Appreciate that, man. Gunner23, advice for people who only enter one lineup in the Millie Maker. I'm assuming you're only making that if you have a satellite ticket, and if that's the case, I had 3 over the for Sunday. I went stupid high risk. I said, you know what, going as high risk as possible. I said I only have one chance. I gotta just take it down as much as I can. End up making 2 times my ROI, so I thought it was pretty cool.
Nice, dude. Yeah, and actually, you know, this is a good point. If you maybe okay, so maybe you play DFS mostly for fun. You want to take a shot every week. You do one $20 injury. That's one thing. If you're winning tickets, I was actually talking with Tyler, our MLB writer, about this. It depends what you normally do every week. If you normally make like 3 to 4 lineups, what I would try to do, I would try to wait for a week until you accumulate 3 to 4 tickets. That way, you're not really veering from your normal routine. Right? If you have like 10 tickets, that's a lot different than what you normally do, and it can make you change some things. But if you get 1 ticket and you normally make 3 or 4 lineups, just wait and try to accumulate some more tickets. But if you're just doing the 1 lineup, I think the idea here is maximum correlation. We talk about the average ownership. Why don't you bring that up really quickly, because you tweeted about it. We talked about it on the Saturday night stream, what the optimal ownership you want for a lineup.
So you want me to pull up your lineup or what?
No, we don't even have to do it. Just what's the 15% rule that we've talked about?
So basically what you want is you want to have your average exposure to your lineup for ownership. You want that to average around 15%. The Millie Maker was about 14.3%, but yeah, around that 14% range is what you want. It's not saying that you go all chalk heavy, because that's not going to happen. If you do hit that, you're going to split it 20 ways. And you can't go all super low owned guys, because that's just not going to happen. So you need some chalk. And as you see here, you know, you had huge plays like McCaffrey that blew up. But then you need some of those value plays like the 49ers defense. I talked about them on the Twitch stream. Said they're a really, really good high-risk play, because one of the big factors is the opposing quarterback's aggressive percentage. I thought that was a really good thing. Yeah, and they were the highest scoring defense on the slate with about 5% ownership.
Yeah, and Moose, your point about aggressive percentage, just going back to the plays really quickly, and then we'll jump back into the analysis. Jameis had the highest interceptable pass rate in week 1, so that was good foresight on your part.
Absolutely. I do want to make a quick thing from Al Mitchellman. It says radical transparency. I appreciate how rare it is to see touts do this. Thanks, gents. Yeah, that's all about what Occupy Fantasy is about transparency. You know, we want to be as transparent as possible through all the processes that we do and share with you. So I really think there needs to be more transparency across the tout market. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know, everyone sees screenshots all the time, right? Most like
correct, yeah.
Screenshot. But you know, a lot goes behind that. One screenshot doesn't mean you're a winner. We're here to teach, and if we're gonna partner with a tool like DFS Magic, I feel like we're just leading people blind if we don't put some strategy and some content behind it. I think this kind of ties everything all together. So that's what we're hoping to do here. So thanks, guys.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, and again, if you have questions, go ahead and ask it. Perfect time to ask now.
Let's go to the next tweet in this thread. I think it shows all the people who had is this the next tweet? Is the next tweet of the people who had $0 returns?
So let's see. So we're going in here. Let's see.
Oh, the top 10 number of lineups they had.
Yeah. So let's see. This is so the top 10 number of lineups that they had. What I thought was really awesome, like, you know how baller that would be. We're talking about the one entry thing. See the Stars have one lineup, got 9th place for 10,000. That's awesome. That's really cool to see.
Yeah, definitely. You see 2 150s in the top 10, and you compare that to the amount of lineups that had everything moves that we talk about. I really want to make this clear for GPP lineup analysis. You have to use a base rate, and if you want to expand on it after I talk about it, you certainly can. But you see a lot of people say, "Oh, 10 of the 17 millionaire makers last year stacked 3 players," or 10 of the 17 millionaire makers used a defense under 2,500. But unless you know how many total lineups use that, it doesn't actually mean anything to you. So I'm trying to think about a very rare example here. Let's just say the 17 millionaire makers last year.
Yeah.
Let's say 16 of the 17 used a defense that was priced under $3,000. The other winner used a high price defense, right?
Okay.
And you might look at this analysis and say, well, damn, you have to use a cheap defense if you're going to win the millionaire maker, right? Right? That's what people say, right?
Yeah.
Okay. But now let's say this is a very exaggerated example, but let's say out of all 200,000 lineups every week in the millionaire maker, 99% of people used a cheap defense, whereas only 1% used an expensive defense, right? Even though less people used an expensive defense, they had a higher likelihood, 1 out of 17, compared to what the 16 out of 17 people used, right? Do you understand what I'm saying here? Even though less,
I'm starting to get.
If you want, maybe you want to explain it a little more, in case I didn't say it as clearly as I wanted to.
The way I thought you were going to go with this. Maybe we're trying to say this the same thing in a different way, but I try not to focus on the actual winner. I try and focus on the top 1% and the 0.1% of actual entries, because as we saw last week, the defensive team's touchdown swapped milli makers. I mean, that's right there is basically a fluke play, won you the million. The other guy had everything going right up to that last play. So was that what you were trying to say?
Kind of. It's a lot of things. So basically, just looking at the winner doesn't tell you much.
Yeah.
Looking at all of the lineups and how each of those lineups do on average is a much better way of looking at things. We'll talk about that here more too. So if you want to move on to the next tweet.
Cool. Yeah, so I kind of talked about what we said, profit and losses per group.
It's crazy.
I thought it was interesting. So 24,000 profited this week, which is 20%, despite the tournament paying out 22.8%.
King Animal had a nice ROI compared to me.
Yeah, and this was the next one I thought was crazy. So this was he called the biggest bagels. These are the most number of entries without a single one cash. So not to shout out anyone or shit on anyone. CH Ray had 150 lineups, didn't cash a single one. Blade 13, which you'll go into in a little bit, had 100 lineups and didn't cash any.
Yeah, so Blade 13 is an example of that, the peaks and valleys. Blade 13 is an Occupy Fantasy member. He won a single game GPP in the preseason for 5K. He took some of his winnings and took a shot here in the Week 1 Millionaire Maker. Airballed it. Congrats. But then came right back last night and won the single game GPP Broncos and Raiders for 29K. So obviously those peaks and valleys were in like a 3-week stretch, which is unbelievable. But it's just an extreme example of the range of outcomes that we're looking for here.
Exactly, yeah. And I feel like in this case, like the variance gods are just punching them in the dick the whole time. Because if you put 150 lineups in, you almost have to try to not do that.
I don't speak too quickly. We may have a stream here in the next 16 weeks where I end up 0 for 150. So let's ease up on it.
Yeah. Pit Panther makes a comment, says, I was looking at these tweets earlier and couldn't make a ton of sense of it. Thanks for explaining all this. Yeah. We're here to break down as much as we can. So if there's something that you're confused or have questions about, definitely go ahead and ask us. We're here to explain. We're here to teach what's going on.
Yeah, if we run through something too quickly, definitely let us know. Or if I talk about something that I'm used to talking about or thinking about that other people may not be, definitely stop me and we'll explain it further. So
I will say there's a couple people that were down further from this spot when I did my own analysis, who did 18 entries into the Millie Maker and didn't put a lineup in on any of them. I was like,
That is not what you want to do.
no, no. So let's see.
I think that's the final interesting thing. Maybe there's something else. That's the winner.
Yeah.
You'll notice he's very close to that 15% average ownership.
Yep. And then he talks about like the optimal lineup, which would beat the Millie Maker by 54 points.
Can you imagine scoring 335 points on DraftKings?
That would be
and leaving 3,500 on the table.
Yeah, that's crazy. So yeah, so that was really cool. Let's talk about lineups. Do you want to talk about your best lineup?
Yeah, let's talk about my best lineup. While you bring it up, you'll see a lot of people. Let's say a pro, let's say Chipotle Addict wins a tournament, and you look at his lineup. You're, damn, he had this guy, this guy, this guy. But if he has 150 lineups, looking at that one lineup doesn't really tell you anything. Mm-hmm. Looking at his exposures, his allocations, how he broke down positions is way more important than the singular lineup. That now you have my lineup here on screen. This is my top lineup. It finished like 7,000th place or something crazy. Mm-hmm. Nothing great. What did me in here, as you'll see in my leverage plays above, I had 3 Miami Dolphins in my top 10 leverage. Obviously did not work out. I thought that game would be way higher scoring than it was, or than Vegas projected. It ended up being that way, but it was one-sided. And so you'll see the 3 Ravens in this lineup did very well. Looking at ownership, looking at this lineup, anything stick out to you that's an error on my part?
Yeah, I think you have too many guys that are low owned.
Yep.
Yeah.
100%.
Yep.
100%. I mean, I had what, 2 guys over 15% ownership. I guess 3 guys technically.
Yeah.
And then everybody else below 7%, a couple 9%. So this lineup was too crazy, too crazy. I need to shrink down my parameters, not use as many low owned guys, low owned stacks. But let's go to my exposures. Let's go to everyone I used, how many players I used, and we'll talk about that.
Cool. Real quick, while I'm loading that up, there's a couple questions. Al Mitchellman says, how do you group your GPP lineups? So let's see. So you don't have 1 or 2 guys screw them all up.
That is, if you have the answer to that, Al, let me know, because that is the answer we're all searching for.
Yep. All right. So I went ahead and pulled your fantasy lab, and then we're going to go ahead and answer some more questions here. Get this up.
So I'm going to explain what this is actually. So Fantasy Labs, I think a lot of people are familiar with their product. Really smart guys running the show over there at Fantasy Labs. They have a lot of free stuff too, free content, free tools, and it's a competitive DFS marketplace. We understand that there are different content sites, different tools out there that you can pay for. We obviously appreciate people choosing to come with us. However, we're not going to disregard free tools when they're out there.
Yeah.
Play 150 max lineups. If you're thinking about playing 150 max lineups, this contest dashboard on Fantasy Labs should be your #1 research tool. So if you go to fantasylabs.com, you click on NFL, you click on contest dashboard. Mm-hmm. This right here, you can pick any tournament from DraftKings and look at how every single user in that contest, how many lineups they entered, and then you can look at their exposures for all their lineups. So you can take the Millionaire Maker from week 1, look at every guy that had 150 lineups in it, and look at their player exposures. So by looking at guys like Chipotle Addict, Papa Gates, Osimo, Kandia, like all these top pros, and see how they allocate ownership and which guys they were high on last week. Invaluable resource, and one of the first things you should do at the beginning or after a weekend.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, to be completely 100, I'm very surprised that this tool is free, because it is one of the most powerful tools I've seen out there, which is fantastic. So, all right, so real quick, BKSA says, please don't take this the wrong way, but I don't know how we are all using the same info, but some win thousands and other win 0. What am I doing wrong? Go ahead and answer that?
I can certainly answer that. If you think about it, how many members Occupy Fantasy have? We have a decent amount of members. We have really good information, and getting the top 0.1% prize is rare. But if a bunch of our members have a shot at it, there's a good chance an Occupy member hits it. Blade 13 used our Josh Jacobs captain recommendation and then filled in plays from the Occupy model. Now, those next 5 guys could have gone a lot of different ways. A lot of different members could have done it. I think the key takeaway is that the running back captain recommendation at high risk was the way to go. And if you look, BKSA has the craziest risk tolerance maybe next to me. So it's all about contests. It's all about the type of player you are. If you're just playing low risk 50-50s, 100-player leagues, you're never going to have that, obviously. And in fact, for most members, we wouldn't even recommend the strategy that Blade 13 is using, right, Moose?
Yeah, I mean, it's so strange because we're brothers. We're from the same blood. However, our risk tolerances are on the complete opposite side of the spectrum. Whereas you're 150 max in every tournament you can find, and I'm loading up on head-to-heads and double-ups. We both get to the same goal, maybe not as much, but I still profit. I'm more of a low risk player. I'm always on stream saying that, just to be transparent. So you won't see me posting a lot of screenshots, but that as we talk about in the Ultimate Guide, that's my goal, is to have a slow, steady bankroll where I also accumulate some satellite tickets every now and then to get a chance at some of these big paydays.
Depends on your game plan, like we talk about
Yep.
in the Ultimate Guide. All right, Moose, a couple more questions here. All the Chocolate Milk, what's up? Another Twitch Prime subscriber, thank you. Do you generally have the same amount of players in your player pool every week? If so, how many do you usually have in your pool? Great question. It will vary from week to week depending on how many top tier plays I think we have, how many leverage plays we think we have. Moose, initially thought I used too many players here in week 1. But if you look at some of these other pros lineups, the other guys who entered 150 lineups, I think I was on the lower end, right?
Yeah, you and I both talked about that. We're like, the first thing I saw was like, bro, you use way too many players.
Yeah.
But then we did some looking into it, and I don't know, man. Not to say that everyone else is wrong, because again, it is just 1 week. But I still think you had too many players in your player pool, to the point where some of your lineups got too cute.
I think so too. And I think if you look at max ownership percentage, mine here, the highest guy I had was 45% of my lineups. That varies from player to player too. So it's going to depend on a lot of different things. So I used 65 players in week 1. You can bet that number will be reduced in week 2. That's my first goal. I think I used too many players, especially at the running back position, because there were like 6 guys I think that we thought were really, really great plays. I didn't have any other reason to use other guys, honestly.
Yeah. If you notice, and we talk about this a lot, whereas in running backs, don't get cute.
Yeah, don't get cute. You saw the Millionaire Maker on FanDuel had 3 high-owned running backs. Here's the takeaway. I'm going to tell you this, guys. If you're playing 150 lineups, you're playing 20 max lineups. Play running backs that are guaranteed volume. You don't need to get that cute. At wide receiver, and Moose, this may change, but I'm pretty sure there's going to be my strategy moving forward. Any guy that's projected for 10% ownership or higher in our model, I will not use them in my GPP lineups. This week 1, I did not do that. I mean, I did do that. I didn't use a single receiver projected for 10% ownership or higher, unless they were in a game stack of mine.
Yeah.
Next week, I'm going to do the same thing. The fact is, popular receivers, they have such wide ranges of outcomes, receivers in general. And the highest owned guys are the guys who did the best last week generally. It's a very recency bias driven position. Yeah. And the fact that they did so great last week means they're not as likely to do as great as they are going to do this week. So by fading high owned receivers, you're automatically gaining a huge edge on the field. And if you just if you think, okay, I'm making 20 lineups this week, 150 lineups this week, cross off every guy that's 10% projected or higher at the receiver position, you're automatically ahead of the field.
All right. I mean, you got me there. What do you think Hollywood Brown's ownership is going to be? Probably 20%.
Who?
Marquise Brown for the Ravens that scored like a bajillion everything.
Yeah. 15-20% probably, and I won't have any of them. I probably won't have any John Ross. I won't have any I'm sure I'm missing a lot of guys
Sammy
here,
Watkins,
but any
something like that, yeah.
Sammy Watkins, yeah, I won't have any of these guys. So
yeah. Real quick, Gunner says, is it possible for people who max enter to collude with each other? So instead of 150, you're doing more. That's actually against DraftKings terms of service. So if they catch you doing that, you are absolutely getting booted.
Yeah. So don't do that.
Yeah.
Do that.
All right, cool. So I want to ask you this question.
Okay.
We didn't plan on this question being happening whatsoever, but your highest owned defense was the Chargers here. and coincidentally was one of your highest leverage spots. Do you want to kind of take me through what made you pick the Chargers as such a high leverage play?
For sure. They were so my player allocations here, I didn't actually put in the DFS Magic lineup optimizer. I didn't really set exposure targets outside of my stacks.
Okay.
So the model kind of drove a lot of these decisions. So the Chargers, I believe, were the top defense in the model in DraftKings,
Hmm.
and by a pretty decent margin. And the fact that they were, just 3K, they ended up in a majority of my lineups. I like the spot they're in, home defense, team traveling east to West Moose, of course.
Yeah.
The backup quarterback starting. So a lot of factors in the Chargers favor there.
Yeah, and if you look, going back at it, like you said, all the things pointed up to it. It was just one of those ones that plays that just didn't pan out at the time. Um, I would take that play all day. That leverage spot with the low ownership. That's something you want to root for there.
Yeah, 8%. I forget what the Ravens were. The Ravens were, almost double that ownership, right? Most if you scroll down just a little bit.
Let's see. Yeah, Ravens were 16%.
Yeah, so half the ownership, and they had basically the same rating in our Occupy model. Now the Ravens panned out. But listen, if I can get similar Occupy model projections at half the ownership, I'm going to do that 100% of the time in my high-risk lineups. That's just a fact, and I'm going to do that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So,
as Pitt says, are you going back to Chargers this week?
I'll let you know tomorrow when the Occupy model releases.
Whoop, whoop.
Listen, I'm not doing a ton of research outside the model. The model guides everything. The model makes a lot of decisions. Now, I read news all the time, and that influences some things. But as far as like projections and other stuff, the model is going to drive the decision. We don't just release this for you guys. The model is a key factor in my lineup building.
Yeah, I agree.
So, Bismo talks in the chat, Curtis Samuel, and he's a prime example of a guy that was 15% owned or whatever it was. I had 0% of him just because it's a volatile position, and especially a guy who's relatively an unknown heading into the season, very easily could underperform. So,
absolutely, yeah. So, all right. So, how do you want to take it from here? Do you want to look at some other plays, or how do you want to go about this?
Yeah, if people in the chat want to specifically talk about the guys I selected, let me know. Until we get some questions about why I chose this player or which guy I had the most of. If you just go back to the left side here, Moose, where you can see all of the entrants.
Yeah.
And just look at some of the 150 max guys and look at the differences, how many players they used, what their max ownership was, things like that.
Okay, cool. So let's take a look while that's loading up. Let's see. I do want to say that I do have the Occupy merch shirt on today. So I have the hashtag Fade the Public, as you can see.
Very apt.
Very, very awesome. Which is, I felt that was worth it for this type of high risk kind of night.
Hell yeah, Fade the Public, especially at the receiver position. If you guys want more information about what I'm talking about there, go to Numberfire. I used to write for them, and Jim Sinus, a former colleague of mine, wrote a great article looking back at how high-owned players at each position did last season, the season before, and wide receivers way underperformed when they were high-owned compared to other positions. If you want in-depth research, if you just search Numberfire, Jim Sinus, high-owned receivers or something, you'll find it on Google.
Cool. Fesco says, "What's your max player exposure when running a 20 max?" I would assume it varies depending on some factors, but do you want to kind of give it like a little high-level answer there?
Yeah, I think if you look here on the left-hand Festival, you look at all the guys who won 50 max, the Millionaire Maker, generally you'll see about 40 to 50% max. If there's an extreme value play, a guy unless he gets hurt, is probably going to hit 5 or 6x value on DraftKings. You can have him in more. Or if you're just game stacking one game, like you just have one quarterback. But for most purposes, about 40 to 50% is what I would say.
Now I am curious. When I was looking, there was one user who did 100% of his lineups. A player in 100% of his lineups. In this case, it was Baltimore defense.
Damn, that's quite the move.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then I also see the next one. He had 100% of Jimmy Garoppolo.
That was not a good move.
That was actually not a good move.
Moose, okay, let's look at Chipotle Addict, for example. He's a top tier
Yeah.
GPP player, one of the best DFS players in the world.
So yeah, so
But
he had a player pool of 77 players, and his max ownership was basically 55%, which he had Austin Eckler of, which that was awesome.
fantastic,
Yeah.
fantastic move. I'm trying to think.
So those are just questions. Gunner said, "What was your best lineup?" Let me go ahead and show that real quick to you guys. I don't
Yeah,
know
it's
how.
208 points.
I don't
So
know if that's going to show. I fixed the screen to show the fancy lab better, but whatever. Get to it. The other one was from Chris. It says, "Can you talk about plays you were under leveraged on? Was that intentional, like Carson, Fournette, and Cook?"
yeah, let's if you just go back to my lineups on this contest dashboard, Moose.
Yeah.
The hell?
And I'll sort by leverage, and I'll go
I
ahead.
lost the Twitch stream here for a sec. All right.
You there?
Yeah, I'm here. I closed the tab by accident, but I'm good. So if you sort,
yeah, so I went ahead and sorted it, moved it over so you guys can see the leverage. Yeah, so the top three players, the leverage of better than 10%. Chris Carson, Leonard Fournette, Dalvin Cook, which I'm actually surprised that they're running backs. You know, we talk about fading high-owned wide receivers. I guess it's because you had literally none of them.
mistakes were made. This is a full transparency stream. I should have had more of them. I wasn't as high on Cook and Carson as I was Barkley and McCaffrey.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew a lot of my game stacks had cheaper receivers, that Baltimore-Miami game, Dallas and the Giants. So I was underweight, under leveraged for some of these mid-priced running backs. However, if I had to do it again, even with hindsight being 2020, I would have picked Barkley, McCaffrey, the next two guys in the next pricing tier, and then Eckler and Carson. And then I just would have ran with those 6 running backs plus my stacks.
Yeah.
But the key takeaway here is that I was very high on the 2 expensive running backs and had them in about 50% of my lineups, which drug down the exposure to some of these mid-price running backs.
Okay. As Pigskin Pimp comes in here, who's
Pigskin,
awesome #1 top cheer for this month. How would you limit your wide receiver player pool over 10% ownership outside of your groups? You mentioned that you just wouldn't play them at all, right?
I would exclude them. It sounds crazy, but I would exclude them. Any guy projected 10% or higher that's not in a game stack. Just so in case anyone doesn't know, you're playing 2, 3, 4, 5 guys from the same game, and that correlation makes up for that ownership difference. Mm-hmm. If he's not in a game stack and he's over 10% projected at receiver, I'm excluding him completely.
That makes sense. Yeah, I mean, because what you can do is you can go to the Occupy model, look at the projected targets. Yeah, for low risk, that's a great way to do. But if you're looking at high risk, there's so many players that hover around that same mark of targets, whether it's 8 or 9 or 7, where anything can happen. If the dude's having a good game, something of that nature, and they want to increase his target share a little bit higher, now he's on pace with all these other guys that are 10%.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for sure. So basically the point is you can get upside ceiling at way less ownership. And if the high owned guy goes off, like you said, Moose, you have 3 other guys that can catch up to him. So
exactly, yeah. And as Chris appended his question, my thought would be, why not fade them entirely? Like, why roster them at all? And then good luck with week 2.
Yeah, great question. This is a question I struggle with, especially at guys that are like 30% owned, 20% owned. Do I just fade them entirely? Do I go half? I let the optimizer tell me on this one what I wanted to do, because I did like Dalvin Cook. I did like Chris Carson. I think this is just a matter of the stacks I picked and the fact that I love the top tier running backs so much that it did give me some exposure, but not all. But I think honestly, most if I am reducing my player pool, I think the result of that will be you're either matching or exceeding the projected ownership for each player.
Yeah, and I was kind of going to ask you on that, whereas, and maybe I'm just stupid on this, maybe one of the dumber questions, but if you have a negative leverage player, like especially in the double digits, is it possible to have that player in your lineup and still take down the million or get in that top 1%?
Yeah, I think the dude who actually won it was on DraftKings. He was like, he had like 3% 49ers or something.
Okay.
And the 49ers were in his winning lineup. So you can certainly be under leverage and win. The point is like, you don't want them as many lineups as the field has, but in case they do go off, and because you think they're in a good spot or whatever, and in case they go off, you still have them in some of your key stacks. I think is the point.
Okay. So it's kind of like a reserve. So it's like you like them, but not as much. Right.
Yeah, exactly. But I think as Chris brings up a great point here, and it ties back to our point where I think I should use less players. That there aren't really many great situations where you want to be like half of what the field has, especially if they're 20-30%.
Yep, makes sense. Festival says, where can I find projected ownership on Occupy? If you go to the different position player tabs, we'll have projected ownership there.
Yeah, it's the FD percentage and DK percentage columns in the Occupy model.
Yep. Cool beans. Um, cool.
Can we look at Osimo? Osimo, I think, is the top ranked
DFS
Roto
player.
Grinders DFS player so far this year and last year. Just curious to see what he did.
So he had a 120 player pool, 36% max player pool like ownership for his lineups, where he had Eckler, Fournette, Johnson, or David Johnson, Kerryon Johnson, basically 30% owned. I'm curious to see what his best leverage play is. I'm assuming this will be one of them. Yeah, so Christian Kirk, 2 Arizona players. I guess going with a stack there.
He must have stacked Arizona pretty good then.
Yeah.
It looks like he stacked that Arizona Detroit game a ton.
That's what it looks like. Yeah, several Arizona Detroit players in that top leverage spot there.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I mean, and you can do this for hours upon end, just looking at some of the better strategies, what some of the players do, and really help your game because yeah, you may be one-sided and just looking at what you do, but it's always good to learn what some of these other top players do.
No, honestly, before I started 150 maxing, I was looking at what a lot of these pros do just to get it, just to get some insight. You can do this for NBA, you can do this for NHL, you can do this for MLB. It's a great way to look at things. When I was just messing around with NBA maxing, I fucking suck at NBA. But one of the first things I did was look like, okay, how many players should I use? What are pros doing? Things like that. This tool is invaluable from that aspect.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with that. NBA sucks, so that's why. Cool. And that was one thing I do like. So let's say there was just a random person I did Can't Stop Beast Mode. We did Osimo, and then let's say if we wanted to compare several people, you can click that up on there on the the little checkbox, and you can compare how the different players did. I think that's really neat.
Yeah, no, it's a great way to look at. Okay, and actually, let me see. Hold on. Is it on this page? Go up to the top most and go to their NFL. Just hover over their NFL menu item.
All right, let me refresh. Okay.
Is it? I think it's their ownership tab, maybe.
Oh yeah, where it shows ownership across different lineups.
Yeah, different content. So this is another good way too. So like it shows. I mean, another incredible free resource that you should be using. It shows each player's ownership at different buy-in levels. So obviously, the higher up a buy-in is, the sharper the players generally. So if you see the guy that's like 5% in a $1 contest, but like 30% in a $1,500 contest, probably means that guy was a good player. So you can take a look at this after the fact to see what plays sharps run and which plays they were less on. So these two tools combined are great kind of hindsight analysis.
Yep, absolutely. And as Bismo said, this could be big literally just now, and I confirmed on Twitter. Antonio Brown was just accused of 3 counts of rape, so that's crazy.
Yeah, that could change some things.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me go ahead and pull this up, see if I can get you guys a better look at this.
Jesus.
Make it look better on here on the stream. Yeah, so if you look there, so for example, Zeke, salary, average points, and then ownership across a bunch of different contests.
Yeah, this is a good, combine this with the other, the GPP tool, these two tools after the fact, Monday morning you wake up and this would be one of the first things you take a look at.
Absolutely. So Cool beans. Let's see. Can we take, just for shits and giggles, I guess, can we look at your worst lineup?
Yeah, we could definitely do that if you have it available.
Let's see if I can find that.
Yeah, if you want to bring up that, that's fine.
I'm trying to figure out how I could find that. I don't think it's actually going to show your specific view lineups, okay?
Yeah, he definitely can.
All right, let's see.
No, I guess it doesn't show. Doesn't show actual points, does it?
No, it doesn't look like it.
Okay, well you can see all 150 of my lineups right here.
Yeah.
If you want to look at that,
Yeah.
you can do that for pros too. But maybe we should talk about my game stacks I used and my why I chose them.
Okay, yeah, I'm totally down with that. So if we look here, at your biggest owned players, you couldn't really tell some of the bigger game stacks that you did. What are some of them?
So basically, I stacked my 150 lineups around 3 different games. Basically, 50 lineups for each game. San Francisco, Tampa Bay, Baltimore, Miami, Carolina, and the Rams. Now, 2 of those 3 Chris wrote about in the plug, San Francisco, Tampa Bay. Both quarterbacks were highly projected. Vegas projected to be one of the highest totals on the board. Carolina and LA kind of in that same vein. And then Baltimore and Miami was way off the script. No one really thought about that. But the Occupy model loved Lamar Jackson. The game total in that game shot up 2 points since the line opened. And all that, both of those factors combined led me to believe that it would be higher scoring than Vegas projected. Miami didn't hold up their end of the bargain, but Moose, I made a pretty big mistake when it came to some of my exposures in that game.
Okay, so what were some of your mistakes?
So as you look here, scrolling up top, you'll see 3 Dolphins in the top 10. I think even 4 maybe. Moose, can you pull up the DFS Magic Optimizer page?
Let's see. Is it back up today?
Yeah, I think Jack has it back up.
All right, cool. So let's sign in. Okay.
All right, let's pick this main slate or whatever.
Okay.
Basically, what my intention was, and I'm an idiot, and it was a very expensive mistake. Guys like Devontae Parker, guys like Albert Wilson, guys like Kenyon Drake. I really only wanted them in my Baltimore Miami stacks because of the correlation. The model didn't have them as top-notch plays to where I wanted them in a decent amount of lineups. But there's a setting here in the DFS Magic lineup builder that allows you to only include guys in your game stacks.
Okay.
And most if you scroll down here a little bit, you'll see there's 2 columns right in the middle for your player pool on DFS Magic. Use in lineups and use in stacks, or use in lineups, include in stacks. Generally, most people will just click true on both, or it'll auto-click true on both. For guys like Devontae Parker, guys like Albert Wilson, guys like Kenyon Drake, who weren't as fantastic of plays in a vacuum, what you can do, click true to include them in game stacks, but false in lineups, and that means they'll only be in your Baltimore Miami stacks and not in your random other lineups.
Okay, that's like some galaxy brain next level thinking there.
It is, because I didn't want Devontae Parker in other lineups because he just wasn't that great of a play. But if Baltimore Miami shot out, he benefits from that correlation.
Yeah.
Whereas, Carolina LA stack, I don't need Devontae Parker in there randomly.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
And I fucked up on that. I did not click false on those guys I didn't want to use. I had them on true for using lineups. So that's how I ended up with Devontae at 20%, Kenyon Drake at whatever 20%, Albert Wilson at like 30%. And that was a big mistake on my part, but lessons were learned, and like I said, we're transparent here, and we're all going to learn together.
Yeah, and just talking about game stacks real quick, Festival does have a question. It says, when you game stack, is your whole lineup from one game, or do you mix in a few from other games?
Yeah, Festival. So that's a great question, and it depends on your risk tolerance. Depends on how big the contest is. The tipping point is about 5 players. Anything more than 5 players is probably too much when it comes to game stacking. 3 players from one team, 2 for another. Now, granted, there was a guy last year. This is maybe the greatest story in DFS history. The guy's username was like very simple. It was like Bears fan, or like very clear this guy liked the Bears.
Yeah.
And he won the Millionaire Maker with 6 bears in his lineup.
That's pretty awesome.
And it was just like the greatest feat of all time. That's an anomaly. So generally 4 guys from one team is about too much. 3 guys is the optimal number. 2 guys from the other team, another really good number. In general, you want at least 4 probably if you're really shooting for the top prize. 4 guys from the same game.
That makes sense. No. Just a quick comment here from Ovio. Says 2 for 2 on NFL slate so far. Let's keep it rolling. Yeah, bro. That's awesome. Do you hear that?
Yeah. Yeah. So we got 10 minutes left. If anybody in the chat has any more questions, feel free to ask them. Just a heads up, the Occupy model is going to be out Wednesday morning. Thursday single game plug will be out Wednesday night, Thursday morning. Chris will have the NFL main slate daily plug Sunday. And we'll be on stream Saturday night, Moose, doing the week 2 preview.
Absolutely. I'm trying to get I'm trying to get Lucas in here to do some college football stuff. We're trying to work that out.
Oh, cool. That'd be great.
Yeah.
That'd be great. 2 podcasts. We got the season-long one dropping Thursday morning, DFS one dropping Saturday morning. I think we're going to have Blade 13 interview in the DFS one.
Okay.
So lots of good content. And then, like I said, we'll be back every week here on Tuesdays, reviewing my lineups and my quest for the millionaire repeat.
Absolutely. BKSA says, when is the best time to run lineups on DFS Magic?
Yeah, probably.
I was going to say, I know you normally do it on Saturdays and kind of tweak them throughout the day, throughout the morning. Is that kind of about right?
Yeah, I think optimally, as long as you have time, Sunday mornings is best. The model's pretty fully updated. Ownership's pretty set in stone. Mm-hmm. I do mine Saturday just because time management standpoint, I got a lot of Occupy stuff to do Sunday mornings. But if you can swing it, Sunday morning is the best time.
Okay. Cool. As Bismo says, thanks for showing these awesome resources and good luck Thursday. Can't wait to get back at it. Yeah, man. Love doing these type of streams, these like learning sessions, because I mean there's a couple of things I've learned from it as well. We can all learn, especially from all these free resources. Is really great.
Yeah, let's brainstorm a little bit here. If we have nothing else to talk about and we're waiting for people to ask questions for the next 8 minutes, Bismo says you can do it. Thanks, dude. I appreciate it. So I use 65 players.
Okay.
Too many. What number do you think I should get down to? And maybe you don't have any data to back this up, but just gut feeling. What do you think?
Gut feeling, I'm thinking about 40.
Yeah, that's probably. Because if I use, let's just say I use 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm just thinking. If I use a game stack, right? Like 4 guys from each side. Mm-hmm. That's 24 players, and that's another 16 to add to it. That's a pretty small core, but if that core goes off, I got a good shot at hitting the top prize.
Yeah, I think you limit the number of running backs, you limit the number of defenses, maybe even limit the number of tight ends, just because. Or I don't know, man. Maybe you don't limit tight ends just because there's so many that are cheap that they could go off. I would have to do some more research on that.
Yeah, well, we look at the model, right? And, ownership percentage plays a big part into tight end projection for the OF index. Tight ends that are like 1% owned rarely go off.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of with your initial thought is, limit tight ends, limit running backs, limit defenses, and then receiver is probably where you add some players to the pool.
Yeah, exactly. As Chris makes a good point, it depends on the total number of games as well.
It's true. It does. So, if there's more or less games, that number is going to shrink or increase. So that's a good point too.
Absolutely. Bismo with the question: target player pools for 3, 5, 10 max contests. How many players for each type of max entry contest?
Great question. Yeah, that player pool is going to shrink the lesser number of entries there are. So, let's try to think. So if we think 50 is a good number for 150 max, maybe it's more, maybe it's less.
Yeah.
For 20 max, maybe that number's 30, 25. 10 max, 15, 18. 5. 10 to 15 guys. I mean, you really don't want a ton because basically what your goal is for 3 max and 5 max is you have like maybe 4 5 guys that you have in 80 to 100% of your lineups, and you rotate guys around them, and just hope those key 4 or 5 guys go off, and you have some proper combination with them to hit the top prize.
Yeah, sounds right to me.
So
yeah. So last couple minutes here before we're here, guys. People that are here on Twitch, if you like what we did, definitely go ahead and hit that follow button up at the top right, the purple heart. You'll get notification of when we go live. Sometimes we just do some random streams. You can go ahead and follow us on Twitter at Occupy Fantasy. You can follow me on Twitter at CFB_Moose. You can follow Brian at Brian Jester FF. Let's see. And the question, All the Chocolate Milk says, how many quarterbacks are generally in your pool?
Yeah, I keep it low. Honestly, just the quarterbacks from the games I stack. So if I have 4 game stacks, I'll just do 6, 8, 8 quarterbacks. If I stack 3 games, just the 6 quarterbacks from those games.
Yep, absolutely. And Bismo cut out. So what was your answer, real quick?
Oh shit, that was a long answer.
Basically, I think the general thing was have a core, small core, and just throw a couple guys in around them. The player pool exponentially shrinks the number of entrants you have.
Yeah, so 3 and 5 max contest Bismo, just have like 3 or 4 guys that use in 80 to 100% of those lineups, and then rotate a handful of guys around those.
Yeah, and as Chocolate Milk says, never a naked quarterback. I don't think you ever go naked quarterback.
No, I won't be. No, our research shows that that's probably not the way to go.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. All right, so 3 more minutes. Anything you want to plug, shout out, anything like that?
Yeah, I think, obviously all these tools we talked about, occupyfantasy.com. If you're watching this and you're not a member yet, you should become one. When we do our Twitch streams on Saturday, we were very generous in week 1. It's very Q&A heavy, very analysis heavy. If you're a Twitch Prime subscriber or you're a Twitch monthly subscriber to us here on Twitch, obviously, you get unlimited questions. It's fair game. So any questions you have, if you're a Twitch subscriber to us, we'll answer them live on the Q&A on Saturday nights. If not, you have to donate bits, or you just gotta look at the plug. So some incentive there to get the Twitch subscription.
Definitely. And again, check us out at occupyfantasy.com. Check out the Occupy merch. I got the pink Fade the Public shirt, which is Chris's favorite shirt. Got the Occupy mug. Bunch of great products over there. So cool beans. So
yeah,
if you guys want a rapid fire question, go ahead. And as Chocolate Milk does make a point, says it's awesome to see behind the curtain. It really is, and I love showcasing this kind of stuff to people. Really good.
This is gonna be great. Week 16 when I'm down 50K. Hashtag transparency. It's like, oh man, this guy fucking sucks.
Hey, but you know what? It just means you're gonna win everything.
It means week 17 I'm hitting the million.
Yep. Yeah, it's definitely.
It's gonna be sick. It's gonna be great that like literally through 16 weeks I'm gonna be minus 970,000.
I'm gonna tell. I'm gonna be able to tell because you're not gonna be able to get haircuts before the stream anymore.
You're gonna see me looking busted because I lost all my money on DraftKings.
Bismo makes a comment that we will never speak of again. Let's see. All right, so
Moose, real quick, just actually 1 minute. Go to the choose settings since we're on the DFS Magic page here.
Okay.
Choose settings, and you'll see the team stacking option on the right. This is how I chose the games I'm stacking. So Baltimore, Miami, I made sure I wanted 3 guys from Baltimore. I would click true on that triple stack column for Baltimore.
Okay.
If I wanted 1 or 2 opponents, Miami guys, I would click true on that. And then the optimizer will run and make sure you get those allocations.
Cool. Yeah, again, guys, this is DFS Magic. Definitely looking for some feedback there. Things you like, things you don't like, things you want added, things you didn't really care for. Definitely go ahead and let us know. We're definitely going to be out here making this such a great product.
Absolutely. Bismo's asking. Let's close this out with my ROI from week 1.
All right, cool.
To cap this transparency off. I did an incredible, out of 150 lineups, negative 62% ROI.
All right, so hit that hour mark. Brian, go ahead and take us out of here, man.
All right, guys. If you're not following us already on Twitter, do so. If you're not following us on Twitch, click that purple heart. Be sure to do that. Helps us out. Get that Twitch Prime subscription to ask unlimited questions during our Saturday streams. It's Tuesday night. This will be up on YouTube shortly. And all of our Occupy Week 2 content will start being released Wednesday morning.
Cool. And hashtag Fade the Public.
Yes, Fade the Public. Get your shirt today. Thanks, guys.
Peace.